Hey everybody, welcome to DBS Films Podcast. My name is Kellen. With me as always is my brother Brendan. Together we make movies with DBS Films. Today's episode, we are going to highlight what we are expecting and basically what our goals are for our next movie, which is a Bigfoot project. And we've just finished the casting for it. We have 11 roles from our Discord, so that's super awesome to see. But basically, we're going to go in these next two episodes, kind of give you an idea of, what are the major goals that we're looking to accomplish. Typically, when we film movies, we really want to focus on one area or another area to try and improve on, because we always see it as a learning lesson. Be sure to go ahead and take a look at our Discord channel online, because we make movies for our fans with our fans. So if you ever want to be part of the process, if you want to be like the 11 people who were in our movie for the Bigfoot project coming up, all you have to do is download the Discord app, click the link in the bio to join us. Also, be sure to take a look at the Force of Death, which is now online. You can go ahead and rent and review it. That means the world to us. So, as I kind of mentioned, really, we see these movies as learning lessons. And typically, while we go ahead and we, create the movies and, we want them to be, good on their own and things like that, there's usually one or two areas that we really try and kind of focus in the sense of, hey, we really want to take a stab at this area or that area or progress this way. So I think the first thing is you want to kind of talk about our methodology where, every movie has so many learning opportunities, but because we make so many movies, because we're making four, whereas most filmmakers won't have the ability to pick and choose, the whole thing's kind of an experience. Where we're at now, going on to movie number 14, we can really kind of dive in deep because a lot of the other areas we're so confident in.
Yeah, I mean, all our movies are like minimal viable products. We're just trying to see if the number one, there's an audience for that kind of idea that we're trying to come out with. And then number two, we're trying to see the pacing and if we can actually make a good movie out of that idea, that concept. We've been very lucky with the last couple of movies that there has been an audience and we've made very good movies for that audience. That being said, I'm always trying to revisit other concepts and we're really trying to find, what works well, what we do well, and then anything that we don't do well, we kind of, cut out of the movie. And I really think that this is a process that most filmmakers should try and do, really play towards your strengths and try and eliminate your weaknesses. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think a good movie is one that avoids pitfalls and bad scenes and just kind of goes and you don't fall through these pitfalls or plot holes or any kind of bad scenes. You just kind of go. If you can make a good movie like that, people are going to like it and they're going to watch it and you're going to get good reviews. I think a lot of indie filmmakers, for whatever reason, they have one really bad scene that makes the users turn it off, or they have a really boring scene, or they go down a plot hole that just is like almost impossible to dig themselves out of. And that stuff comes from experience. And our whole motto is we're going to make a lot of movies, we're going to learn a lot, and we're going to get better. And with each movie we make, we get exponentially better. So I'm excited for this one. Horror in the Forest, which is going to be coming out shortly, is very successful. It did really, really well. And we're going to try and pull elements from that movie and put them into the Bigfoot movie. So it's going to look a little bit similar. But once again, here's the thing. We've gotten so much better in the two movies that we've shot since that movie that you're not even going to be able to tell. There's going to be another huge jump in DBS history. We're going to take what we did really well in Horror in the Forest, what we did really well in the Roger Project. We're going to apply it to this movie, and we're going to sneak in a Bigfoot. And boom, you're going to have a much better product.
Yep, very excited for that. I mean, it really is the case where, again, what ends up happening is when you look at, the films on their own, if you watch all of our catalog, you can really kind of pick up, where we've learned things and how things work. So I think the first thing I kind of want to mention is, this is one where, the Roger Project was kind of a very unique one, honestly. We're not quite sure if that concept will work. What we do know with the Roger Project is that people are liking Roger, so congrats to that, Ben. I know you're listening to this right now, and that was kind of the big thing that we led with. I feel like for this one, we just feel comfortable in the Bigfoot concept. And that, before we even started this podcast, I was mentioning anytime we're throwing that Bigfoot word in there, when it comes to the YouTube videos that we have up there, we're getting kind of a response. So, as you mentioned, Horror in the Forest was something that we had a successful predecessor to with Into the Forest. Forest of Death was the wild card that we always kept talking about with Shapeshifter. Roger Project has Roger, so we're, confident in that element. And this one kind of has Bigfoot. So do you want to kind of talk about how, when we look at these movies, it really is a case of, at the end of the day, making it so they are set up for success as much as possible. And even though we don't have the past concepts, as you kind of mentioned for those ones, we're pretty confident with the, again, applying the horror in the forest genre and having Roger and the Roger Project. But basically, I guess the question here is, when you're laying down the framework for these next 4 movies, I would say ever since after Forest of Death, so I'm including Horror in the Forest now too, we were very clear that these are highly viable products for one reason or the other, whereas Forest of Death was kind of our last wild card.
Yeah, and I think Forest of Death was one that we just kind of did because I just really wanted to make that movie. There is not a lot of shapeshifter skinwalker movies out there, and it's probably for good reason. It's a little bit of a harder sell. Forest of Death is our highest grossing movie, or to this date is the highest grossing movie that we've had. Fingers crossed that it keeps going. But I do think it was a little bit of a harder sell. I do think the 80s concept is also a very hard sell. So I do think that, while it did really well, I think a lot of that growth came from the growth in our Discord community and our fan base, and just us growing and making a better product. I really think that movie was a very solid product. But I think Horror in the Forest is going to be a much easier sell because I know the data from Into the Forest, which did really well. The problem was the original Into the Forest, people just didn't like the story. They didn't like the characters. They didn't like how we made that movie. But a lot of people watched it. They just turned it off very, very quickly. But I know people are clicking on it. Witches are scary. Woods are scary. I'm not concerned about that at all. The Roger Project, which I just finished watching and putting together the first rough cut after Kel gave it to me, is actually going to be a very good movie. This is
Let's
not that
go.
not that I'm surprised because I know that Roger's a good actor. It's going to need a little bit of editing work to kind of move pieces around, but it's a very creepy, unsettling movie, but in a good way. And I think it's something totally unique to what we've done before. It's just very interesting, and it's a very cool movie to add to our catalog. I think a lot of people who are more traditional found footage fans are really going to like this movie. Not to say that I'm not going to add music to it, but if there was one movie that I wouldn't add music to, it would be this one. But I'm still going to play around with it. Once again, we're going to poll our audience. We're going to show it to the Discord. We're going to do everything we need to do to make this the best movie possible. But, for having one dude out there in the woods and making this movie very quickly, it has a really unique kind of feel to it, something that we haven't been able to capture before, which I think is really, really cool. But I know from my publishing experience, from just going through data with movies, abduction stuff, missing people, especially missing people in the woods, sells like hotcakes. So I'm not even worried about this one moving forward. As far as Bigfoot goes, I see Bigfoot movies all the time. The top documentaries on YouTube are Bigfoot. There's Bigfoot movies all the time in Amazon. I'm not concerned with this one at all. My concern is just making sure that we do the Bigfoot fans justice, that we're, doing our research about Bigfoot and making, the best movie possible for them to enjoy. Because I think the real foundation of a lot of these movies, what really separates ones that do really well versus ones that are just okay, is can you really connect with the true fans of this movie? Can you find the people who really like Bigfoot and make a movie for them? And then hopefully you make a good enough movie that, the casual viewer, the people who are just looking for regular horror movies, are entertained. And, that's the goal. But this is the first time we're really going after a cryptid, but I'm looking forward to it because if we really get something cool here, once again, this model is easily replaceable. You can take Bigfoot, you can put an alien in here. Maybe another shot of the Skinwalker. You have chupacabras in there. There's a whole bunch of other stuff we could, kind of add in here to build this lore. So it's exciting times. I like this concept. It's going to be similar to Horror in the Forest, but I think it's going to be better. And I love the cast and crew that we have for this one. And I'm just really excited to get started.
It is going to be good. And I'm glad to hear that because, I mean, again, I had that rough for Roger Files. You heard me. I was always like, I think it's on par with Horror in the Forest, but I just thought we did a really great job with Horror in the Forest. It's kind of stewy, but I will agree. It does have this weird dark grit to it that I think Roger carries it, but of all of our found footage, I think it looks the most found footagey, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of I'm sure like how the cuts play out and everything there is only going to add to that. So again, great job, Ben. Looking forward to having that trailer because we got a lot of good monologues from you with that one. So I think the first thing I want to hop into with what I'm looking for when it comes to this project is what you nailed right off the bat, which is cast and crew. So DBS Films, we make movies for our fans with our fans, and there's a lot of things that go into that. It could be an easier process for us to continue to look with actors that are strictly local within Full Sail, things like that. For production wise, again, we are flying people out, we are doing things to accommodate that are a little bit extra cost, but I think what I'm most excited about now is since we've been doing this for about a year, I believe we're really cultivating some good talent now. Not to say that people aren't good, but I mean, I went through 1,032 auditions. We had 77 callbacks. We have 11 roles. And when I got to the 77 callbacks, it was basically at the point where, hey, you could randomly select any of these callbacks and I would be very satisfied with the skill set of them. But I think this is going to be another movie, which again, I think we proved a lot with Roger Project when it came to having the Discord members on that one. But I think this one's really going to hit it home. I mean, we got a lot of juicier roles in the sense that really it was Roger for the Roger Project with a few other ones, but we have a lot of really bigger roles, and we also have cause and effects makeup coming out for the special effects. I think this is going to be one where the model really gains momentum, in my opinion. I think we had a lot of really, really great candidates for this, people who are huge parts of the DBS community. They're going to be in these movies. And I think what's really going to be awesome about it is it's just going to continue to prove that we're on the right direction. And I'm really excited about that personally, but just seeing how the auditions were, I'm already getting in my head, if we have an audition every month, the Discord was on fire. We met so many new people who were kind of really active because of the audition process. It really does bring it to life. I mean, I was looking at some of the statistics, and we're up about 45% when it comes to engagement during the time of the audition, which obviously makes sense. But seeing how motivated everyone was for this audition, seeing how well everyone was for this audition, and seeing the cast that we have, I think what I'm honestly the most excited about for this movie is I think it's really just yet again going to solidify this model for us.
Yeah, this is definitely the biggest Discord movie we've had so far. I think I'm about to write a check for about $4,000 to fly everyone out, because they're pretty much all over the place. Usually we cast from Florida, which we did in the Roger Project, but this one, I mean, these people are flying from everywhere. But I'm excited. I think it's twofold. Number one is there's a lot of new talent in there that are just very good already. They're movie ready. They're ready to be put in things. But I also want to highlight the growth of somebody who's been with us for a while, and that's Tatum. And Tatum started off with a very small interview role in Horror in the Forest. Then she got a call back for pretty much a side character in the Roger Project. She had a few little scenes in there. And now she's the lead in this movie. And she's in 100% of this movie. I think there's she's probably in about 90% of the movie. There's 10% where she's not in it. But just to show you the growth from starting small, which is our philosophy. It's a huge risk for me to bring on people, especially new people, to set. So we start you off as like an interview or a small little role. We want to make sure you're cool with everybody, you're cool with the process. And then if you're cool and you put in the work and you do everything you're supposed to do, we bring you up and we kind of, grow, and we both grow together. Tatum's acting has been absolutely phenomenal with each step of the way. And, I'm really excited to see her in a featured role. But that's just an example of somebody, graduating with each step and getting better as we make better movies as well. So I wanted to highlight that because I think she did a really good job. It's a great success story, and she'll continue to do really well. And, with this movie, with the last movie, there's a lot of people who are put in side roles, smaller roles to start off. And those are going to be the first people that we, contact for larger roles. So, it highlights is the first step is to get into one of these movies. And the people who are in this movie earned it. There was pretty much the best of the best got the roles, and I was very happy with all the auditions. I've been very happy with the onboarding Zoom meetings that I've been. I think everyone's really talented, and I think this is probably one of our most talented groups of both cast and crew for this project. So I think everyone understands the process. I think our process is much smoother now. The onboarding process is perfect. The pre-production work that we're going to put into this movie is going to be our most pre-production work we've ever done before, because there's a direct correlation with doing all the work in pre-production and the final product. So I'm really looking forward to this, but there's a lot of cool growth stories in this. There's a lot of cool people in this movie, and I think we're going to have a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's we're racking it up now. We got the target of 50 for the year, and we're closing in on that. And I think really the big thing with that is no pressure to everyone involved, but it's basically something where the better they do, the better they are on set. And really, I would say people get the nerves and the acting element a little too focused on there. It's really just kind of, again, understand what we're doing, being hardworking. Those things all apply on set. So I'm very, very excited for that. I think we have a fantastic cast. I'm excited to meet everyone in person from this, because, again, cool thing with the Discord, feels like I know you like a best friend, but I haven't even met you in person yet. So I'm excited for a lot of photos and things like that too. And big congratulations to everyone involved for that. So let's go ahead and kind of get more tactical in this episode. And then next episode, we'll kind of talk about where we see, ideally the launch of this movie getting. And by tactical, I know something on the top of your head that you've been talking about is going to be the special effects. So pressure on you, cause and effects makeup for that one, but I know you're going to crush it. And then also the climax, in the sense that, I think when we're looking at Horror in the Forest, while it's a very solid movie, our best climax to date is still kind of Girl in Cabin 13, at least in my opinion. I think you share the similar one, but I know there is a focus on kind of that final act, making it end with an oomph. Is that kind of your thoughts on this production?
Yeah, I think there's probably three goals with this one. Obviously, the first one is, well, let's start with Horror in the Forest. The goal on that movie was to get the dark and gritty tone of this forest, and it's just a very hyper realistic movie. And I think we got that. I think we absolutely nailed it. I think all the actors did a great job. That's not a happy movie. It doesn't end happy, and I think everyone nailed that tone. And I think tone is something that a lot of indie filmmakers really struggle to get right. And I think we nailed tone in both Forest of Death, which is very uplifting, happy 70s and 80s style campy horror. And I think we nailed this one, which is very dark and gritty, elevated horror. So the learning lessons, and from talking to distribution companies and talking to streaming companies, was they love Horror in the Forest. Unanimously, best movie. I've only received maybe one no so far as just distribution opportunities. The issue that they do bring up is that the ending was just a little bit unsatisfying. So the cool thing about making a lot of movies is I could go back and say, all right, well, why was this an unsatisfying ending? And I do think it was my fault. I think that the ritual was such a cool moment and such a cool little scene that it kind of dragged on a little bit. And then if you ask me what the high point of the movie was, it was, I can't spoil it, but something happens with Nelson. And, that is such a high point. It was such a tension scene. It was so well acted. The climax really should be the peak of your movie. And you can't get better than that. Like, there's nothing else we could have done that's better. And so when that all happened, you're stuck with one character. And if you're doing a found footage movie with one character, they can only run in the woods for so long before they have to stop. And I think that that's kind of the issue, is that if I were to do that one again, I would have the Nelson scene, and I would have Georgie, Bo, and Dylan run through the woods, and slowly, like every 5 minutes, they lose someone as they get yeeted or they get killed, and drag it out a little bit longer. with more characters. I think it would have been a better ending. I think the Georgie character needed to work more. So she could have fought with some of the zombies that were out there, or struggled more, or really worked for it. And then we had the intro girl come in when she's completely out of hope. I think would have been a better way to do it. But you just really wanted to take something that we did. It was maybe 5 or 6 minutes long as far as like the actual climax, and extend it to 10 to 15 minutes. So knowing that, we head into Bigfoot, and this climax is going to be 15 to 20 minutes. I'm really putting a lot of work into it. We're really going to try and figure out how to really get a better climax than Girl in Cabin 13. I think the actors are all about it. I'm open to ideas. I'm going to get an absolute ton of footage so I have it, when we can edit it. And the biggest focus on this is get a very good climax, get a very satisfying climax. That's goal number one for this movie.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think really the big thing with it is kind of, if you look at Horror in the Forest, when you end at the, spoiler, whatever happens during the ritual, you don't necessarily have a full downbeat to actually reset. So you kind of coast into this panic and fear, but nothing hits that peak like it did before. So I think that is kind of what ended up happening. But I mean, again, you're so set at that movie. It's not a disappointing ending. It's just, you want the ending to go on with a bang. And I think that's going to kind of be a big focus there. I think the other thing, that I've kind of been mentioning, if you ask me, I would say the biggest thing holding our movies back is special effects and production value. Now, here's the thing, both of those things are incredibly costly. But I think, when you look at our movies, you've mentioned it all along, you want to kind of put on an illusion that this is a $1 million movie. And I think we do a really, really good way of doing that. I mean, we easily bat way above our actual budget, but you even want to take that to like a 100x level. And I think with that, what I mean by like the special effects is I do think we just need a little over the topness to it. I mean, it is a horror movie, and I think that's kind of one thing that we're missing is those gore, the smashing, even I think there's some indie films that I see where even though it's like it doesn't even look good graphic wise, it's still like, okay, I respect that they're doing it and something there, but then hey, they pull something off that looks really good and you're like, oh dang. So that is kind of a gray area. And then for production value, I think this one's just probably going to chill in the corner a little bit. But this is things like, if we get a cabin in Georgia that has a basement, or that, a lot of things look like Florida. They don't necessarily look like a actual big environment. And I think, even though if people might not notice that, they might be like, hey, this doesn't really look like a forest. Hey, this, that's not really like, a lot of times I think if you look at like the Haunted in the Murder House, like, oh, it's just a house. So those are kind of the two ones. I think the one we're addressing here is going to be, leaning more on the special effects side of things, but also with the production value, we've kind of learned with found footage to cheat that more. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of excited again for this one. I think, Cause and Effects does fantastic stuff doing our special effects challenges. Honestly, though, Tatum was a massive, improvement there. Kaylee as well, too. So, I mean, when you take a look at Horror in the Forest, you'll already see a big jump up in special effects, in my opinion, from Forest of Death. So there's already a big jump up there, and it's kind of increasing. And I just think we're just going to continue to compound that. So I guess the point that I'm drawing with the special effects is at the Forest of Death level. I think we've already made a lot of improvements, and I think we're only going to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. The problem with special effects is like it's very hard to pull off and it's very expensive. So it's like two things that are just very difficult for indie films to have. Um, so it's like try and figure out what we can do well, which is the gouged out eyes we do well. We do throat slits really well. Just throwing blood on people looks really good. Um, so like those are our wins, and then with each movie we try and do a couple more things to see if we can add to our repertoire of special effects stuff. And I think we can get to the point where we'll have a very good amount of special effects that work very well, but we're just not to that point yet. We probably need like 4 or 5 more to have in the back catalog that we can do really well. But we are working with a new special effects person on this one. She's very excited. The stuff she's shown me has been absolutely fantastic. So I'm really excited to work with them. and we'll just try new things. It's just a learning process for everybody. As far as production budget goes, biggest cheap, just do it in the woods. The woods look spooky, it looks high production value. You only need tents and you only need a little bit of light. That's it. I think if we do go back and we shoot Girl in Cabin 13, we shoot Murder House, which we're probably going to do this year, we'll spend extra time really trying to find some really cool locations. Although the Girl in Cabin 13 cabin was actually pretty decent, I just think, we need something. If we're going to do that, I'd rather spend more to find a really good location, especially for Murder House. Something that does not look like a flipped Airbnb would be nice. But I can say that now, and I'm willing to spend more money on that now because I know Girl in Cabin 13 sells, and I know Murder House sells. And if you're an independent filmmaker and you're trying concepts that you don't know that may or may not work, it's better just get the movie done and uploaded as opposed to breaking the budget, because you can make a giant movie in this beautiful mansion, this giant house, and it's a time travel movie where you see like an image of yourself and it's like alternate dimension, and then it just turns out that concept doesn't sell. You're out a lot of money because you have these giant mansion houses.
I mean, it really does come down to that main concept of testing it. So I do agree, before you put in the production value, you might have an idea that you think is like, oh, this is like what every subgenre of person really, really enjoys. They think they'll really enjoy it. And you have, even a community behind it. It turns out, nope, it's not really something people are liking. So I think that is super important. But yeah, I mean, that echoes everything that I'm saying. I think the last thing I do want to mention about the Bigfoot project is like, I mean, are you nervous? I know you're always nervous because that's just your default setting there. But I mean, like, compared to Forest of Death, compared to Girl in Cabin 13, compared to the Murder House, like, I'm just really confident with our production skills. We have Andrew, we have Tatum, we have Discord members. Like, all of those is a recipe for an incredibly smooth shoot with like no real issues. And here we go, knocking on wood. Guess who just jinxed it? It's this guy right here. But I mean, after Roger Project, after Horror in the Forest, like after all of these, I feel like we got a new level of confidence here. And again, this might be the level of confidence that airs us, but we're not dumb. We don't make the same mistakes. I think that's the difference, is we don't do those types of mistakes there. So again, maybe this is me cursing us, but I will say I've cursed us every single time that we've made a movie, and each one of those has been successful. So I'm happy to do so. But I just feel like going into this, it's found footage. We know what we're doing. We have our team. We got Dylan. Like, I feel very comfortable with this. How are you feeling?
I mean, I feel good. I like the script. I like, it's always nice to work with actors again the second time. The actors are always very shy the first time. It's hard to get really work with them in a collaborative manner. And you can try doing that, but like, they're just going to be so reserved, and they're afraid to hurt your feelings, and they're afraid to get their ideas out there, that it just turns down to be a waste of time. Like, you have to just make decisions and just take some of the input and then go. Where this time, I've been in contact with Andrew for a while. He's doing a lot of pre-production stuff. I feel really good with what he's coming up with. The same thing with Tatum. Tatum does a really good job of pre-production. Which is why, we wanted to bring those people on. And I'm not worried about them. I'm not really worried about a lot of things. Obviously, there's red flags in the script that I'm going to give attention to, but I mean, we're making 14 movies. The last 2 shoots have been very smooth. This is a bigger shoot than the Roger project. This is probably, I don't know if it is as intense as Horror in the Forest. It might be a bigger shoot and more complicated than that movie. I don't feel like it though. There's a lot of crazy stuff in that movie. Definitely less than Force of Death. So then it's like, all right, well, I look back at my past movies, and this one's, it's medium difficulty, maybe bordering hard a little bit, but there's nothing, there's nothing super crazy in here that makes me really nervous. I think my nerves just come down to, scheduling. If you've ever done scheduling for a movie, to block off time and coordinate with everyone is just it's a process. People who do casting and people who do, or essentially producers who set all this stuff up, deserve a lot of credit because there's just a lot of moving pieces. I'm not a fan of this part of the job, but hopefully this weekend we get everything locked down, we get everyone, squared away, we get all the travel done, and then for the next month, all we have to worry about is getting a really good script, and then we spend 7 days shooting this thing, and then we get movie 14, and then we're on to the fan favorite Girl in Cabin 13.
Ooh, I'm excited for that. So that's going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Next episode, we're going to talk about how we want this movie to do, in the sense of obviously good, but we want to basically talk about how this could launch multiple Bigfoot things. There's kind of a subgenre here. I mean, again, when something works, it really works. So we're going to really kind of hop into the opportunities that it poses and what it could potentially be. With that being said, my friends, it's going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Be sure to take a look at our Discord channel online, because we make movies for our fans with our fans. So if you ever want to be part of the movie making process, if you've ever wanted to be on set with us or just behind the scenes in any way, that is the place to be. Also, be sure to take a look at The Force of Death, which is now online on Amazon. You go ahead, rent and review that. That means the world to us. It makes us able to go ahead and make more movies. And thank you again to everyone who was part of this audition process. You guys absolutely killed it. But until then, have a good one.